The time of the show where we interview somebody. I'll give you 3 seconds to give me a word. Amazing. And it continues to get more and more amazing. This woman is a journalist. She's an award-winning journalist at the New York Times. Please put your hands together for Sandra Garcia.
Hold on. You guys were together at the Twitter.
At the Twitter Voices dinner.
Yes.
And as soon as I heard this little voice coming from the front of the restaurant, I said, I need to meet this woman. And I said, oh shit, that's Sandra Garcia.
That would be me.
Welcome to the Latinos Out Loud podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, you educated woman. You, my God.
Pretty educated.
It's really astounding and quite an inspiration. And I hope you can do a little more justice as to what you do for a living for our listeners, because I didn't do it justice.
Okay.
Tell us what you do for a living.
I write and report stories for the New York Times. That's pretty much the.
That's all you need to say. That's like,
That's it. Drop that mic.
That's like an elite group, I would assume. Like, you can't just walk in the door and be like, here's my portfolio, I start when? Like, it has to be on some
I don't
vetting like a motherfucker.
consider myself an elite because I'm very much from the hood, and so I'm just like a little Dominican girl that works at the New York Times.
Hey, I love that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, you...
But you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. It's a big deal. I get it. It doesn't feel that way when I'm calling 20 people to get one comment on one thing. But yes, it is really, I have my dream job, is all I'll say.
Okay.
can you throw in New York Times? Do you have those moments where you could just throw in, I work for the New York Times, and then you know it's gonna get a reaction that's gonna get you like a hookup somewhere and shit.
I'm really not in those circles.
Okay.
But
Not even if you like Burger King. Yo, I work for the New York Times.
that's
Can I get
crazy.
Can I get some extra onion rings, please, on the house?
Jamie could teach you the ways. He got to press past the Comic-Con, so he knows the secret sauce.
I know the secrets.
As a journalist, I try to keep it under wraps. Like, my mom is always like, porque mi hija trabaja en el-" And I'm like, Mom, stop telling people. Because,
You got that on your Tinder, don't you?
Ew, Tinder?
That's the first thing I'll do. New York Times. I got money, girl.
I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like, I work with some people who have blatantly said, like, yeah, I put it on my Tinder profile, but I'm not on Tinder.
Okay.
But yeah, there are some of us that do that. Not I. My mom practically, if she could get on live television with a picture of me and just be like, mira mi hija, she would do that.
Nice.
But I try not to tell anyone ever.
Yo, can you give somebody a shout out?
With.
Gabriel, yo, what's up here at New York Times? He has a show in New York City here.
Yo, y'all are
7
crazy.
p.m.
Who would I give a shout out to? This is hilarious. Oh my God, I know exactly who I'll give a shout out to. Shout out to my boy, Matthew Hennessy Haig, the Metro real estate reporter, who's the realest man in the building. He is just the coolest dude ever. He backs me up, and he's just a real one.
Nice.
Shout out to Henny.
So Sandra, we met when you were working at Manhattan Times.
Not a lie.
And I know that there were some challenges, obviously, when you're working in Washington Heights and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your experience when you were working in a local newspaper in Washington Heights?
Well, the Manhattan Times was like a very singular experience because they had one reporter for northern Manhattan and the Bronx. And now, I'm one of a million reporters all around the world. It just means instead of writing 8 stories a day, I write 1 story a day. And then I have one feature that I'm always working on. But with the Manhattan Times, it was like, you've got to write 4 stories tonight. And I was like, wait, no. But it's great practice. I would not have wanted... It's like, when, Kobe Bryant's in the gym like 20 hours a day or whatever. Well, used to be. I was basically in a gym all friggin' night when I was at the Manhattan Times, and that helped my writing so that when I got to the Times, I could bang out a story.
You're like, damn, I got to write another story about a hookah bar opening and shit.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
That's a good news. That's good
Not
news.
wrong.
The 5th one this week.
That's
that.
what you throw in, like, excuse me, can I get a hookah? I'm writing about your hookah in this establishment.
What kind of review do you want?
All the Dominicans are gonna show up.
one?
I want to know how your refills taste like. Come on, please.
I'll show up real quick.
No, listen, we bonded because part of the experience of you writing for the Manhattan Times, you had to go to the community board meetings.
Oh my God, nightmare.
And so like that for you just couldn't leave. You had to stay there the whole night.
Yo, Mike,
stories. Tell
do
us.
you know that I had a notepad, right, to like take notes? First of all, people up there are insane.
Yes.
The community board. And like that's a good thing. People shouldn't just like take it, sitting down. They should like, have their opinions heard, all that good stuff, democracy, whatever. But like when you're in there for like 3 hours and like they're still going about the new hookah bar that's opening. And you're like, bro, we got it. We don't need another testimony on why you don't need a hookah bar at the lobby of your building.
Lobby?
Yeah, it's like,
Damn.
it was rough. I had so many notes of like, oh my God, will it ever end? Because it was like 4 hours. I don't know how you did it, bro. Like,
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. We bonded because I would be back there and I'm like, oh my God. And I couldn't leave till like midnight. Things started at 7. It went into
What
midnight.
a commitment, my God.
Yo, it was insane.
abuso.
It was just too crazy. Do you remember an article in Manhattan Times or even around that time where you were like, yes, I am so proud of this baby. Like, this was really beautiful.
I covered the Dominican election in Washington Heights.
Wow.
Full on insanity.
Wow.
Full on crazy. But the story came out so good, and like I spoke to so many people at the, I think it's the PLD office in like 16 something in Amsterdam. And that was cool. I've never been that close to government in the Dominican Republic. And it was funny because later on I wrote a story about the immigration crisis they had, and they like pulled up on me. And anyway, it was interesting to see and interesting to write about for that community, which is like 90% Dominican.
Yeah, because people don't know, but it's like people are very, very invested here in New York and Washington Heights about the election out.
Well,
in
because
Dominican
people here can
Republic.
have dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but my point was is like it's so crazy because they're campaigning here as well. So it's like it's like a complicated thing where they're actually campaigning here in New York and Washington Heights to vote for over there. And it's like, yo, the way Dominicans campaign, either if it's a councilman or for the president DR, yo, they got them trucks.
I gotta say something. My father led the movement for La Doble Ciudadanía, Valentín del Orbe. I just want to put that out there. So the reason why a lot of us could also, before we became American citizens, we lost our ciudadanía. So now we're able to have American ciudadanía and Dominican ciudadanía. And my father was one of the guys that led the fight for that. So
Nice.
Shout out to him.
Wow.
Valentín del Orbe.
Amazing accomplishment.
Wow.
He told me that yesterday. So he's like,
You ain't gonna
make
go through-
sure you know. Because nobody remembers me.
And the next day, it's
It's out in the world.
It's out in the world.
Yeah.
So funny.
But shout out to you, like if we have like an applause thing, like we got a Dominican in the New York Times.
It's
That's
huge.
a win.
Thank you. Thank you.
Huge.
It's insane.
How young were you when you kind of got into like journalism? Like when you really were like, did you used to watch like Superman and was like, I want to be Lois Lane? You know what I mean? Like,
I hate that pickup line.
Oh my God.
Wow, girl.
Wait, the
I hate
pickup
it.
line with the guy
Rachel,
saying, yo, what's
Rachel,
up, yo?
I
You
get
like
it
Lois
all the
Lane,
time.
yo.
What do you do? I'm
Let
a
him know.
reporter. Oh, you like Lois Lane? It's like
and let me be a Superman, girl.
knuckleheads. Men
Let
are
'em know.
horrible. Men are whack as hell.
Let them know. Some of them are listening right now.
Y'all are whack.
That's true. That's como I don't date him.
Stop calling me Lois Lane, bro.
So I don't date him.
Oh, but did you have any kind of role models? Like what got you into journalism?
Okay.
What if somebody called you Louisa Lane? Would it be the same thing, or would you be like, oh, yeah,
I'm
that's
calling
cool,
the
'cause I'm a-
police.
All right, my bad.
Rachel.
My bad. My
Rachel,
bad.
stay in your Lois Lane.
Oh, excellent. That was excellent.
Pretty good, Jamie.
Yeah, that was great.
Yo,
That was great.
does he do this for me?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't encourage him. A few more will come.
So funny story about me getting into journalism. I was at Lehman College undergrad. Shout out to Lehman.
CUNY.
Shout out to CUNY kids. Shout out to CUNY
CUNY
kids.
kids.
Love CUNY kids. And
Alright.
like, no wait, I love CUNY. and being a cutie kid. So I was at Lehman College, and it was my second year, and basically financial aid was like, well, we're not giving you anything if you don't declare a major.
Oh, dang.
And my mother has a degree in physics and mathematics. She's a genius, right? She's insane. But all of that skipped me. I hate math. I can't even look at numbers. I don't even know what to tip ever.
But they got apps for that.
For real.
I don't even download. I can't even compute, bro. Like,
And then physics is like science with math.
she's a
That's what you know,
genius.
yeah.
I have not done her intelligence justice if it's in me. So hopefully, like, I have a kid, and then anyway. So the lady at the financial aid office was like, yeah, you can't enroll for next semester's class. I was like a full-time student and working full-time, so I needed the schedule that I had planned out. You know how it goes. And so I was like, where do I pick a major? She was like, grab a bulletin and pick a major. So I literally went through the bulletin and picked the major without math, journalism.
Wow.
This is hilarious.
We were in sync. We were like, wow.
Yeah, 'cause, like,
Kids,
why-
do you hear that? Just pick one out.
Why didn't I think of that? That's so smart.
And then I went to the journalism program that year, and I met Miguel Perez, who was the president of the Lehman College has a wonderful journalism program. Well, I don't know if they do now, but they did when I was there. And Miguel Perez, like, walked me. He basically made me feel like, yeah, you can do this. I was like, sure, I can like get this degree and then be a teacher, right? And he was like, nah, you can actually do this. And he went to Columbia University journalism school, and he told me, when you graduate, you should apply. Like, I see, like it was nothing like, and I'm like, sweetie, that is Columbia. I don't know if you've seen my transcript, but that is not it for me. But I applied anyway, and then I got in.
Toma.
And
Nice.
I know it was a surprise to me too. And
It was a big.
Wait, which Colombia? Oh, okay, Colombia.
It was a big F you to math. It's like,
Yo,
you know what?
yo.
I'm going with the words.
Yo.
I'm going with words.
Yes, son.
And then, and I didn't really have, as I went along with the journalism program and learning journalism and reading articles, I had people that I looked up to, like Jim Dwyer, who was at the Daily News and like covered the Central Park 5 and has been at the New York Times and is like a mentor. Like, I am obsessed with him. He's a wonderful writer. He also wrote the About New York column. And I love writing about my city. And I just really looked up to him. I always wanted to do what he's done. People like David Gonzalez, who also wrote the About New York column. All of my peers at the New York Times are badass and like really know what they're doing. So I didn't grow up like, one little thing happened, which I don't know if subconsciously guided me in this way, which is I asked my grandfather how he learned how to read. And he said, can I speak in Spanish?
Yeah.
And he said, yo andaba por la calle y recogía todos los periódicos y leía todo lo que podía. Because he told me he dropped out of school in the 3rd grade, fucking 1942 DR, And that's how he learned how to read. He would pick up other newspapers off the floor. So when I was in high school, like on the train, if I found a newspaper, I just pick it up and read it. But I would be lying if I said that influenced me in any way. But I also don't know if it didn't.
Subconsciously.
Subconsciously.
Well,
So there
put
you go.
you on a path of greatness, and here you are.
Not mad at it. My mom prays a lot.
Yo, I want to hear about this essay you wrote in regards to your relationship with hoop earrings.
Oh, yeah.
Enlighten us, please.
Which, by the way, you were part of a project maybe like 10 years ago about the hoop earring too.
I
so that's so
was.
dope.
Really?
I was in a documentary by Linda Nieves Powell, who's the writer of Yo Soy Latina, the
Wow.
show, and it was all about I think it was called The Bigger the Hoop.
Yes.
So I want to hear this so badly.
I'm from the hood, and we always wore hoops. Like my middle school, like little picture with the little diploma had like 4 hoops on. This is what we did. You know what I mean? Like it's just, we didn't even think about it because it was who we were. And my mom would buy me algojas all the time. If I lost one, she'd have another one to pair it up with because she had that many spares and stuff.
Wow.
And then when I got to like Columbia, was it? Yeah, when I got to Columbia, I was like, you know what? This is too ghetto. I gotta take I was like one of 2 New Yorkers in the entire class. Wow. The only Dominicana in the entire class. Wow. I'm black. I'm crazy. I dance merengue. Like all these outliers, and I was like, so I'm gonna wear earrings to make me stand out even more. All these kids came from amazing schools, and I was just like, I'm from, CUNY, which is a good school, but it's not like, Harvard or Yale. Mm-hmm. And I just felt self-conscious about who I was and who I was being perceived as. And so I stopped wearing my hoops. I just, wore like little dormilonas and like studs and stuff. And then at the times, I saw all these white women wearing hoops. I'm like, espérate, because I know a hoop.
Hold up.
So it's good on me, but it's not good on you. Okay, girl, right? And so I decided to explore where hoops came from, where that, how did that happen to me? How did I learn to make myself smaller to fit into this big space when I could have just walked in at my normal size? Ooh. And
I love this so much.
Yo, y'all are funny.
Please don't stop. Keep going.
Continue.
And I bought a little tiny hoop. And I loved it. I loved the way I had, shorter, my little pela que yo tenía, and it just looked so good. And I was like, okay, girl, we working with something. And then I got a bigger hoop. And I'm like, this is it. This is who I am. I've become myself again. And then the story I just mentioned, I didn't think it would be a story. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I didn't think it was a story. Wow. And then I was having coffee with an editor, and she's great. And she said, oh, this is a story. You have to write it. And that's how it happened. And I think it's important because it goes into, I'm not territorial. I'm not saying white women should not wear hoops. Y'all do y'all. All I'm saying is, this is ours. Mm. So you're welcome.
Back up.
Yeah.
Not back up, like lean in, but just know who it belongs to.
Speaking of which,
keep your hoop dreams. Keep your hoop dreams.
Yeah.
That was very well. That article was very well received on social media. My next question for you is, how, as a journalist, does social media play into your work, and how do you find stories that you might want to write about? Like, how is social media as a journalist in 2019 for you?
Yeah, like people are crazy on social media. I just wrote a story on Sunday about Frank's girl Greta Thunberg. And how this man on Facebook basically said he wanted to... He wouldn't go to a rally because he didn't have his sniper rifle. Wow. He wouldn't go to a climate change rally she was going to be at because he didn't have his sniper, which says everything you need to know. Mm-hmm. Oh this man posted this on Facebook for everyone to see. He is a science teacher.
What?
So he teaches kids the same age as Greta with that sort of mentality, which is detrimental to kids, period, right? And so yeah, social media is a resource. You put it on there, I'm going to find it. Period.
You're like snooping around with like hashtags.
We're like little private detectives. Also, I find people to talk to, right? So like if I'm writing about a desk, I'm 20 times out of 20, someone has tweeted, yo, I love this desk, hashtag desk. And then I get, you know what I mean? And then I just DM them like, yo, you love this desk, tell me more.
Yo, this desk is dope, yo.
Right. 20 times out of 10. Also, when there's like really bad news, like mass shootings, 100% of the time someone is tweeting, I'm in a mall and oh my God, someone shooting. 100% of the time someone is taking video and has uploaded it.
Oh my goodness.
It's a resource.
I remember like when New York had that mini, like that fake earthquake, but it was kind of like, and I remember like, I was like, I don't know if there's an earthquake because obviously in New York, that's the last thing you're thinking of.
Right.
I'm like, yo, but my TV just shaked. It's weird. I thought like maybe like my roommate was like getting it with his girl. In the next room.
Okay,
like,
Jamie.
I need to like calm down. But then I was like, all right, first thing I did was when I'll go on Twitter, and I remember the comedian Patton Oswalt was like, yo, was that an earthquake in New York? It's the first thing I see. And it's like, that always made me think like, yo, Twitter is always the quickest
100%.
way to find out about something before the news hits, before anything.
It's like a hole everyone runs up to when something happens to yell into. Yeah. It's literally...
Yeah.
Like people literally are running to be the first person to tweet, there's an earthquake. And so like, there you go. It's a resource.
So are people DMing you like story ideas? Like, yo, loco.
It's the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yo soy un barbero and I got a new haircut style.
Oh, wow.
You need to write about it, you know? Come on, Sandra.
It's awful.
Yeah?
Because people don't really understand how news work. works. I also don't know how to talk tonight. And so like they're pitching you stories like, yo, these new sneakers released, but like they sold out in 2 minutes, and I'm just like, I hear you, I do. But it ain't. I'm not going in that direction. So there's a lot of that, yeah. But people don't get how the premise of a news story works.
Could you walk us through it?
Yeah. Oh God!
Come on, girl, please. Please, please.
I don't know. It has to rise. Not only am I working for like a legacy newspaper, we don't necessarily write about every shooting in New York. We don't write about every like arrest, every rape. We get alerts, and if we wrote about every one of them, I would be at work 24 hours a day. And so we have to be precise about what we write about and how we write it, because everyone's reading. The president is reading. Everyone's reading. I think everyone's reading.
How do I follow you? That's what I want to know. I want to read all your stories from now on.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Thank you for reading, Rachel, by the way.
Hey, listen. When we met at the Twitter dinner last week, like I said, your voice attracted me, but also your spirit was like, not only are we going to have a blast with her on the podcast, but I want to do a little research because you're very knowledgeable. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more that we could talk about. Were you just about to ask something?
Well, I was saying, kudos to you because you've been writing about some Afro-Latino stories that is super duper
100%.
uber luber pooper cooper whatever.
We got it.
Important. Can you tell me a little bit about how people are feeling about that, because it's so darn important right now for people's stories to be out there, especially when it's a demographics right now that's waiting for their stories to be told.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Obviously, I'm Afro-Latina. And I write about what is important to me. What did I want to read about? I have 2 nephews, Miles and Cami. I love them so much. And they're Afro-Latino men. And I want them to be able to Google, what do Afro-Latinas like to wear? Hoops. Okay, boom. You know what I mean? I want them to have a record. Also the fact that I'm, born to Dominican parents and like we are descendants of slaves, I can't really trace back my lineage like let's say someone here could. Like I'm reading this book and it talks about how all the African American people moved from the Great Migration, and I thought I could never trace that. I could never find out how my grandmother ended up in La Capital. I could never figure that out because, no shade. A lot of Dominicans didn't know how to write, and especially back then, it was a lot of labor. And I just want to leave a record for my nephews and my future kids. I write about Afro-Latina stuff because it matters to me. I don't know how it's being perceived. It gives me a lot of anxiety to look at numbers of like how many people are reading it. I write the news. I write breaking news every day. And then I write about stories that are important to me and my people, my culture.
I love when we can draw parallels with our guests, because aren't you drawing parallels in your head right now? We're doing the same thing with comedy.
Mm-hmm.
We're writing about the stories that matter to us, but we're adding that filter, that lens of comedy.
Exactly.
And we are like pioneers, people.
Shout out to us.
Shout out to us. One time for us. The fuck?
Mm-hmm.
We never do this. We never applaud ourselves. I think we need to do it weekly. Can we? Can we just have a segment where we call it like
clap
applaud
break,
ourselves?
Clap break. Let's
We
go.
need to clap it up.
Clap it up.
Sandra,
Clap
so
it up.
you got involved in journalism, New York Times. Do you see yourself writing a book? Do you see yourself going into another medium? Like, how do you see yourself getting into another way of projecting your voice and your thoughts?
I know I have to write a book. I mean, everyone, all the New York, I get it. It has to happen.
Listen, I want to just give you a heads up. You talked about your voice right from the beginning. If you need somebody to do the audio version, Rachel right here can do it in British and regular, your book, and you're good.
Yo, my dream is to be the voice of an audiobook.
Done.
I was thinking more like
Done.
Charlotte's Web, but I will do a book for you, Sandra, in a heartbeat.
Oh my God.
Done.
Yeah.
Yo, if you need Dominican Spanish, I'm your
Yo. know how important Dominican Spanish is?
Yes.
Yo,
Yes.
I cannot tell you how many times I've been called like, yo, can you translate this first? Because I speak Spanish, but it's not. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my God. I have to share this story.
Shoot.
A girlfriend of mine is an ADA in Queens, and she had a Dominican, witness write on a napkin where he saw the crime go down. And she took a picture of it and she texted him. She goes, you got to interpret this shit. I don't know what the fuck he wrote down. He wrote
Right.
QUINIDI. I said, oh, Kennedy Airport.
Oh my God.
This is what I'm talking about.
That's like a game show. That's like a new game show.
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Ahí mismo. Right.
And then what?
True story.
And funny
True
because
story.
I bet you somewhere else it was like, yo, where you eating that chicken from? Kennedy.
Yeah, she was like, what the fuck is a quinidie?
Who's your favorite president? Again.
Quinidie.
So back to you and your book.
So important.
Okay,
Cultural relevancy.
I have to write a book. I don't have a topic. I have a loose topic. I've discussed it with some people. I am not sure yet. I'm going to keep it a buck. Another medium, I really love writing. I really, really love it. My dad, when I was little, he used to tell me, "Tu si raya la pared," because I would literally get in trouble because I would be writing on the walls. Like, I would write my uncle who lived in DR letters. I've just always been a writer. I don't have a memory of not being a writer. And so a different medium for me, sure, like if the guap is right, but I prefer to write every time.
Nice.
It's my choice.
Do you ever get a chance like on the weekends to kind of like I don't want to watch the news, I kind of got to shut off my brain a little bit? Like, what do you do when you kind of just need to kind of separate your brain from your job, you know what I mean, when you kind of do like...
The problem is that I try, I really do, but 2019 has been a crazy year, and so it's impossible. 3 things are happening a day, 4 things a day. It's really hard, but I do try. I try to go away. I try to leave my laptop here when I go on a trip. I try to turn my notifications off, so even if my phone is going off. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry to all my editors. Even if my phone is
Hey, Sandra, we heard you in the Latinos Out Loud. Come over here. We're going to talk for a second.
I doubt they're listening. We're safe here, girl.
Well, yeah, those are the
Safe
things
space.
that I do. I also call my mom a lot.
We get more Manhattan Times listeners.
Even, maybe.
Shout out to the Manhattan Times.
Word.
yo.
Look, we got a lot of friends there.
Well,
we got a lot of friends.
I'm from uptown.
Shout out to
I read
Deborah
the
Lee.
Manhattan Times.
Shout out
Deborah
to
Lee
Deborah
Santos,
Lee.
y'all.
Shout out to them.
Yes.
Final question.
Shoot.
Okay, this podcast, we move people forward while making them laugh, right? Still?
Yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
nice.
I'm so glad.
Or giggle.
Yeah. So there are definitely some aspiring writers out there listening. Just drop a few words of advice for them if you don't mind.
The best advice I've ever gotten is to write it anyway.
Love
Oh
that.
my God.
Yo,
If
one
you
time.
I'm gonna get a tattoo right on the shoulder.
Shut up.
Upper shoulder.
If you don't have someone to pitch it to, if no one wants to publish it, if you don't have a way to finish it, a way to start it, if you don't have a middle, if you don't have characters, write it anyway. The best advice I've ever gotten from Jim Dwyer himself. Shout out to Jim.
Full circle. You got it from
That was great writing.
Wow.
Or, yeah.
She writes for a living.
Yes.
All right, people. One time for Sandra Garcia.
Thank you guys.
New York Times, baby.